What's up, people? I got the guitar out this time, folks. I'm going to play. I don't know how well the volume's going to come through, but I'm playing a little bit in between this thing I'm doing. This thing I'm doing is kind of spur of the moment. But I dug up this article. This is from 1911, January 1911, how Bob Fitzsimmons came to be a prize fighter. Now, he was a guest. Let me look up this info here. I've been up for a long time, so forgive me if I'm scattered here. He was a guest sports editor for the Crosse Tribune January, and we're going to take a look. I'm going to read this through, and I'm going to play a little guitar in between. Hopefully that comes through as well. All right, let's get this going. This is kind of a long article. I don't know how long it's going to take to read, but we'll do what we got to do right here. How Fitz came to be a prize fighter. Brutal youth broke his nose. Yearning for revenge caused him to learn the fighting game to get even. Hold on, I got that graphic. I'll try to do this with a minimum of commentary, but mother's plans differed. She wanted him to be a clergyman, but he whipped Sunday school teacher. Go Fitz. Okay, here we go. Look me between the eyes. Now look cross-eyed, and you will see the point. It is that ridge across my nose, the jagged break overshadowed by a mound. See the hump? No, I didn't get it in the ring. I got it in the nose. It isn't a prize fight scar, but it's the scar that made me a prize fighter. And to it I owe all other bumps and marks, and 1,000 subsequent manhandlings have given me. Pretty nearly everywhere I go, someone asks me how I happen to become a prize fighter. It's a story that I seldom tell, and one I've never told before for publication. So in editing the sporting page of the Tribune today, I'm giving its readers an exclusive yarn that to me is very personal and important. Just missed being a preacher. If it had not been for that biff in the beak, my mother might have had her way. Then I would have been a palm-singing preacher, a psalm-singing preacher whose knockouts were all vocal, whose only left hook was a bread hook. I didn't read this beforehand, by the way. I didn't read this all the way through just now. Bread hook, strong on the uplift instead of the knockdown, leading sinners to repentance for their sins, rather than beating them to repentance of their daring. How it happened. It all came up over a snuff box and a rugby football. I was 11 years old, and my mother, good woman of the Spartan sort, had sent me to get her snuff box filled. On the way back, in an open lot beside the English church of Timaru, New Zealand, I had moved to the country from Cornwall, England at the age of 9. Some young men were playing football, and the pigskin got out of bounds, and I started to return it to the players. The man who came to meet me was a big strapper. I loved football, just as American boys are crazy over baseball, and I could not resist giving this one a kick. It grazed the big player's nose and rose up and up to the stars. I saw an instant later when that brute swung his mighty fist on my child's nose and broke it with a blow that left me unconscious for 4 hours. Then I went home, and my mother beat me up for having failed to return her snuff box. The Spartan sort indeed, oh my goodness. Okay, I'll keep going. Learned boxing for revenge. I was a toothpick of a cub then, but I could hate well, and I hated that big football player with a hate that was venomous. I promised my bitter soul that I would get his goat, and from that day on, I began learning to fight. First, I appropriated 2 old leather aprons from the blacksmith shop owned by my brother, in which I was apprenticed, and made them into a set of boxing gloves. The boys used to gather round and box, picking out those who they thought well matched them, but I fought all comers. I picked out the big ones and fought day after day, month after month. Some of the blows that landed from big fists on my slim body with its girl's waist hurt me worse than any I have ever received in the prize ring, but I was in it to stay. My mother had not given up on her aspirations for me and was still preparing me for the clergy. I had to go to every session of church and Sunday school, and I was doing fairly well in my work. But after I had begun to be some bruiser, an incident happened that stopped all that. It was in Sunday school. A friend behind me called my name, and I turned in my seat. The teacher, a burly butcher, seized me by the ear and jerked me around and upstanding. His lift had given me a good start, and my now belligerent spirit prompted me to let drive at his head. I landed on his nose, and the blood splattered out in red profusion. I hastened from the class. Then I was in a fix. I dared not tell my mother, and I dared not go back. So I hit upon a scheme. I must know what occurred in classes so as to make good at home the bluff that I was still attending. I found a snug hiding place in the bushes outside the building opposite a window. The class was just inside, and there I would hide of a Sunday and hear the lesson and learn the golden text. After which I went home and gave a good account of myself. Later, the pastor and the abused teacher himself begged me to return, but I was obstinate, and I never went back. Cleaned up 5 giants. Along about this time, Dan Lee and Billy Hercombe opened a boxing school in Timaru, and from the sound of the first gong, I was there with the bells on. I got on some, and that was pretty much master of that know-nothing class as amateurs. I barred nobody for size, meeting all the big fellows, without apologies for my scant weight. Before I reached 15, I had 3 bare-knuckle ring fights, and during that year, 4 years after a football burly had given me my fighting inspiration and a crooked nose, I had my first battle for fame. Jim Mace, a promoter, offered a gold medal for the heavyweight amateur championship. I entered with 5 others. I weighed but 130 pounds while they were all giants. Instead of drawing lots, I took them all on, one right after the other, and I trimmed them good, the best one of them lasting but 3 rounds. But instead of giving me the medal, which I had won, Mace prudently bought me a glass of lemonade, and so great was my pride at the honor of drinking with the great sport that I was tickled to death with my liquid trophy. You all know Jim Mace, England's famous old warhorse of the squared circle, national champion and popular hero of 2 generations. He was in the heyday of his glory then. Incidentally, I went on from Mace in London 2 years ago and made a horseshoe on the stage, which sold on the spot for more than the entire box office receipts. He made $1 million, but died during the past year in poverty. Fought for a 2-cent photo. 2 years after the contest just described, Mace returned and made a similar offer. This time there were 4 contestants beside myself, and I cleaned them as easily as before. The prize was to be a gold medal and a gold watch, but having learned to deal with me thriftily, May substituted a 2-cent photograph of himself, and I received it as an emblem of the glory that surrounds greatness. It was at this meeting, and immediately after I had defeated my 4 rivals, that Mace suggested that I go on with Herbert Slade, the then wrestling champion and heavyweight boxing comer, and try to stay with him 4 rounds. I weighed in at 133, and Slade was a strapper, but I made him shed his gloves in 3 rounds. It was less than a year later that Slade met John L. Sullivan, who put him out in 4 rounds. I often wonder whether, had Slade stayed that last promise round with me, he would have ever got to John L. Went on with Mace. But that was not the finish of that meeting. By the time I had sent Slade away talking to himself, Mace was thoroughly interested and asked if I was tired. The word wasn't in my dictionary in those days, so he thought it would further please the audience to have him put the mitts on with me, and I consented. It was in his mind to give so promising a cub a few pointers, and I was proud and pleased. But when we shook hands and put up our guards, the audience turned one of those sensational tricks audiences sometimes do. They were home folk, my friends and pals. They thought Mace was framing it up to put me out, and they went mad. They hurled chairs and canes at the stage and swarmed about us in a mad mob. Mace understood and stilled the noise by linking arms with me and walking from the stage. It took months for me to forget my disappointment at having missed this opportunity to spar with the hero of England's sporting history that night. Well, I guess I'll have to end the story of how I came to be a prize fighter right here. For from this point on, I was a pugilist. Before my training had advanced enough to suit my purposes, the big football player had left the immediate community. And for 2 years, I trailed about the country within a radius of 200 miles of Timaru, attending every football game in the hope of finding him. I never did. I've forgotten many of the faces that were familiar to me in those New Zealand days, but I've never forgotten his. I would know him today, with a beard on. And if I ever meet him, there'll be something doing. I have a long, unsatisfied ambition to smile pleasantly over a cold bottle and a hot bird at the man who deprived Timaru of a blacksmith who might still be beating glowing pig iron before framing forge, honored only for his horny hands and celebrated only for his horseshoes. All right, that's the article. A couple people in the chat. Oh, what's up, Andre? Hi, Fee, big up. Yeah, I don't know how the guitar came across. If the guitar comes across, I'll start doing stuff like this, like reading articles and rocking out in between, because I love to play. Especially play just blues licks and stuff like that. So I figured that won't get in. I did a private recording trying to have my piano like autoplay a chord in the background, so there would be a key, so I could get a little more creative, play some slide or whatever. But that didn't work. But anyway, this is just a test. You guys let me know in the chat, or I guess I'll listen back afterwards. But yeah, maybe this will be a new thing. But interesting about Fitz, bullied like many fighters, bullied at one point, gave him the fuel to go up and clock all these big guys. So hey, thanks for listening, and hopefully I have some more content coming very soon. And definitely hope that this format works. Otherwise, I'll have to figure something out. All right, folks, take it easy now.